Imagine this. It is the last week of December. You are on your couch in soft, slightly worn pajamas, half listening to some holiday movie in the background while your thumb scrolls. Reel after reel, story after story. People posting their perfect year recaps, productivity graphs, body transformations, engagement photos, ski trips, gratitude lists, and then their big dramatic resolutions for next year. New routines, new bodies, new careers, new mindsets. Somewhere around the fifth glow-up montage, a quiet discomfort appears in your chest. You start doing mental math. You compare their milestones to your year, your body, your bank account, your relationships. You open a blank note thinking you will write your own hopes for next year, and suddenly your page fills up not with what you actually want, but with what you feel you should want. You are not designing a life, you are copying a template. By the time the fireworks are over, you feel like you are already behind on a year that has not even started. If this sounds uncomfortably familiar, this video is for you. By the end of it, you will have a way to step out of that pressure to live someone else's new year and begin to build a year that actually fits your nervous system, your values, and your real season of life, even if it looks nothing like the posts in your feed. In a few minutes, I will walk you through a simple 3-step map to find your own script for the year ahead. But first, you and I need to name the pattern that keeps stealing that script before you even write it. Let us call it the borrowed year. The borrowed year is what happens when you let other people's goals, timelines, and aesthetics quietly overwrite your own. On the surface, it is almost invisible because it does not shout at you. It shows up as shoulds. I should be making this much money by now. I should want a morning routine like that. I should be traveling, hustling, starting a business, settling down, starting a family, healing my childhood, optimizing my diet. It is not that you are not allowed to want these things. It is that you cannot tell whether you want them or whether you are borrowing them because they look like proof that you are living life correctly. In practice, the borrowed year feels like this. You sit down to think about next year and there is a disconnect between what your body quietly longs for and what you write on the page. Your body wants rest, but your list says 5 a.m. gym. Your body wants fewer but deeper friendships, but your list says network more. Your mind longs for time to process grief or change, but your list says achieve more to catch up. There is a mismatch between your inner season and your planned schedule. That mismatch is not a sign that you are lazy or broken. It is a sign that your internal compass has been drowned out by external noise. Psychologically, the borrowed year is fueled by 3 forces. The first is social comparison, the way your brain constantly checks where you stand relative to others to feel safe. The second is identity uncertainty. When you are not sure who you are or what you value, it is far easier to adopt a ready-made script. The third is what you could call calendar anxiety, the sense that a year is a measurement unit by which you will be judged, so you better fill it with as many visible upgrades as possible. None of this means you are shallow. It means your brain is trying to find belonging and safety using the tools it has. The problem is that when you build a borrowed year, you pay a heavy hidden price. One cost is chronic dissatisfaction. Even if you hit some of the goals you borrowed, they do not land in your body as real satisfaction because they were never yours to begin with. It is like wearing someone else's tailored suit. People might say you look great, but you cannot breathe properly. Another cost is self-mistrust. Every time you force yourself into a life that does not match your values or your current capacity, your nervous system has to rebel at some point. You burn out, self-sabotage, or quietly drop commitments, and then you interpret that as proof that you cannot stick to anything. Over a few years, this can turn into a deep belief that you cannot trust your own choices, when the truth is that you simply never learned how to hear your own choices under all the noise. There is also a subtler cost. You delay your real life. If you are constantly chasing someone else's milestones, you never really get to explore the questions that would actually shape you. What do I find meaningful? How does my energy naturally move through a week? What kind of relationships genuinely feel like home to me? The good news is that your inner compass is not gone. It is just buried. You can uncover it, and you do not need a dramatic retreat or a complete life reset to do it. You and I are going to build a toolkit to help you notice when you are about to borrow another year, and instead design a gentler, more honest one. The first tool is something I call the Noise Audit. Before you can hear your own voice, you need to know what is talking over it. The Noise Audit is a simple question. Whose year are you secretly trying to live? Not in theory, but in vivid detail. A fitness influencer's body, a friend's career, a sibling's family structure, a fictional character's aesthetic. Your brain rarely says this out loud, but it keeps an internal collage of lives that look like proof you are doing it right. When you plan your year, It quietly holds that collage next to your life like a ruler. So the first step is to drag that collage into the light. Sit down with a piece of paper or a notes app and instead of listing goals, list characters. Ask yourself, when I picture the ideal version of me next December, whose life does it resemble? Maybe you picture your coworker who seems effortlessly organized and social. Maybe a YouTuber who has turned their passion into a business. Maybe an old classmate whose family looks perfect on Instagram. You write their names or their roles or even just descriptions, and next to each one you write what you think their life proves. For example, this person proves it is possible to be fit and successful and social at the same time. Or that person proves I am behind because they already have a house. This exercise is not about judging them or you, it is about seeing the silent standards you use. Often, once you name them, they already loosen their grip. You realize, for instance, that the person whose life you envy is in a completely different season, different responsibilities, resources, or values. Or you notice that what you envied was not their schedule, but the feeling you imagined they had: safety, autonomy, connection. That is the treasure hidden behind the noise. A little experiment for the next 24 hours. Every time you catch yourself thinking by this age I should have, or next year I must finally pause and ask quietly, whose timeline is this? Where did I first see this script? If you want, you can write one answer in the comments and see how many of us are negotiating with invisible comparisons instead of real needs. The second tool is the inner season check. Most New Year planning assumes that everyone is in the same season of life on January 1. The calendar flips and we all start fresh together. But your mind and body do not obey the calendar. Emotionally and psychologically, you can be in very different inner seasons at the same date as someone else. Maybe this year was a storm for you. Loss, transition, burnout. Maybe it was a building year. Heavy on responsibility, light on visible progress. Maybe it was a harvest year. Some things finally came together, but you are tired. Designing next year without checking your inner season is like choosing clothes only by looking at the weather app in another country. The inner season check asks 3 questions. First, in one word, what did this past year feel like from the inside? Not what happened on paper, but what your days felt like. Heavy, scattered, tender, frantic, numb, rebuilding. Second, is your system more depleted or more under-challenged right now? Are you more the person who is bored and restless, or the person who is constantly on edge and dreaming of lying on the floor? Third, what does your nervous system most need in the next 3 months? Stabilization, stimulation, connection, space, simplicity, or adventure? When you answer these honestly, you might realize that the year everyone around you is using to push harder is the year your body is asking for fewer goals and more deep maintenance. Or the opposite. You realize you have been hiding for a long time and what you need is not another rest year but safe ways to re-engage with life. This does not mean you forget about external realities like bills or responsibilities, but it gives you a truer starting point. An easy way to use this tool is to actually say the sentence out loud. My inner season right now is, and then fill in the blank without censoring yourself. See how it feels in your body. Often your chest, jaw, or stomach will relax when you name it correctly. If nothing comes up immediately, you can sit with it for a day and notice what words keep returning. The third tool is something I call the one honest priority. The borrowed year loves long lists. 10 habits, 5 major goals, 3 identity shifts. The one honest priority is the opposite. It is the recognition that realistically, your life has room for one central shift at a time, while everything else changes more slowly around it. The trick is that this priority has to come from inside, from the intersection of your values and your inner season, not from your comparison collage. To find it, you ask 2 questions. First, if next December you could only honestly say one sentence that begins with I am glad I protected or I am glad I moved toward, what would that sentence be? Second, what small but real changes in your days would make that sentence true? For example, your one priority might be, I am glad I protected my mental health, or I am glad I finally made space for what I actually care about, or I am glad I stopped abandoning myself in relationships. The key is that this sentence already hints at behaviors. Protecting your mental health might mean committing to regular sleep, saying no more often, or starting therapy. Making space for what you care about might mean cutting one obligation to make room for a creative practice. You are not choosing a goal like lose 10 kilograms. You are choosing a direction of care. Then you look at your current life and ask, what are 3 tiny visible actions that belong to this priority? You do not need to find them all at once. You can start with one. Maybe for protecting your mental health, the first action is creating a rule that on Sunday evenings you do not open work emails. Or for not abandoning yourself in relationships, the first action might be writing down in advance one non-negotiable boundary you will keep in your closest relationship. An experiment here. Sometime after this video, set a timer for 10 minutes, write the sentence next year. Above all, I want to be able to say and let your hand finish it. Do not pick the sentence that would get the most likes if you posted it. Pick the one that makes your breathing feel a bit easier. If you feel brave, share a shorter version of that sentence in the comments. You might be surprised by how many people have secretly similar priorities. The fourth tool is the future self interview. When you borrow other people's new year, your future self becomes a stranger shaped by algorithms and expectations. The future self interview invites you to meet a different version. Not the fantasy ideal, but the you who actually lived your next year in alignment with that one honest priority. Imagine sitting down with them next December in a quiet cafe or on your own couch. They are not perfect. They did not magically erase their humanity. They still have anxious days and messy rooms and unfinished tasks, but they have, in small, consistent ways, honored the priority you chose. Ask them 3 questions. First, what did I stop doing this year that made the biggest positive difference? Maybe they say you stopped saying yes when your whole body said no, or you stopped ending every night in front of your phone, or you stopped pretending certain relationships were fine. Second, what did I keep doing even when it was boring or invisible? They might mention taking your medication, showing up for therapy, paying attention to your budget, doing small stretches, scheduling meaningful calls with one friend instead of trying to please everyone. These are the things no one celebrates online but that create real stability. Third, when I messed up or fell off track, how did I talk to myself? This answer is crucial because it reveals the tone of the relationship you are building with yourself. Maybe your future self tells you you did not magically become consistent. You stumbled many times, but each time you learned to say, okay, we messed up. What is the next small step back instead of spending 2 weeks in self-hatred? Writing out these answers, even in rough form, gives your brain a new script. Instead of vaguely promising to become a better person, you see the specific behaviors and inner dialogues that actually shape that person. It also helps you notice which of your current habits would make that future self feel grateful and which would make them feel abandoned. A tiny experiment. Tonight, before bed, write one short paragraph as that future self answering the question, what am I most thankful you started or stopped this year? Read it out loud once. You do not have to believe it fully yet. You are simply giving your mind something else to work with besides comparison. Underneath all these tools is a deeper philosophical shift. Right now, the new year often acts as a stage where you feel pressure to perform your life for an audience. The borrowed year is a performance script. You measure your success by how well it would play on that stage. What you and I are building instead is a private conversation. The question becomes not how impressive will this year look from the outside, but how bearable and meaningful will it feel from the inside. That does not mean you ignore ambition or never push yourself. It means that ambition grows out of understanding, not out of panic that you are behind. It means that when you choose a challenging goal, you choose it because it resonates with your values and season, not because you are hoping it will finally silence the feeling of not enough. You might still feel the pull of other people's stories. You will still have moments when you scroll and your stomach drops. That is okay. The goal is not to become a monk untouched by comparison. The goal is to notice when comparison is about to write your whole year and gently take the pen back. When that happens, you can say to yourself, I can admire their life without needing to copy their script. My nervous system, my history, my responsibilities, my gifts make a different shape necessary. If you recognize yourself in the borrowed year, you can even pause this video and write one sentence your mind often repeats about what you should have achieved by now. Notice how old that sentence feels. Did you first hear something like it as a child, a teenager, a young adult? Whose voice does it echo? Seeing that alone can create a crack of distance between you and the script. Through that crack, your own voice can start to come through. As we come to the end of this time together, I want to leave you with a simple protocol you can remember when the pressure to reinvent yourself on January 1 starts to build. First, you run a noise audit and name whose year you have been trying to live. Second, you do an inner season check to understand what your nervous system is actually ready for. Third, you choose one honest priority that you want to be able to thank yourself for next December. Fourth, you interview your future self for clues about what to start, stop, and how to speak to yourself when you inevitably fall off track. None of this requires a perfect plan or a productivity system. It requires curiosity and a willingness to treat your life as something you are in relationship with, not a project you must constantly upgrade to impress an invisible jury. Noticing the borrowed year is already progress because you cannot change a pattern you cannot see. Every time you gently choose your own priority over an imported one, every time you adjust your goals to your inner season instead of the calendar, you are quietly returning your year to its rightful owner. If this way of looking at the new year helped you feel even a little less behind and a little more in touch with what you actually need, let that be your first small win of the coming season. And if you want to keep building a real toolkit for better thinking, clearer choices, and a more compassionate relationship with your own mind, that is exactly what we are doing here on Mind Unlocked. Like this video, if it helped you take the pen back from everyone else's expectations, share it with someone who feels crushed by comparison every December, and subscribe so you can keep adding tools to your mental toolkit for better thinking and carry them with you into every new year, not as borrowed scripts, but as support for the life that is truly yours.